Let's go a little bit about the dating online part
Yeah.
because that's the majority of how people meet today.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing where like you don't want to have a formula in terms of like a script, but you want to have something that's reliable? And how do they get more attention in
Yeah.
the world of Bumble, Tinder, all that?
Totally. So one thing I will say is I actually, back talking about approaching and online dating, they're so different, but they are both so important for your top of funnel strategy. I like to think about dating as a funnel.
It's like a sales strategy?
Yeah, it's like a funnel.
How do women react to that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, comment below.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
But I just created a course, a mini course that is just about how to approach women because it is something that is so challenging. And then I also have a course that's just about online dating because you really have different things to consider in both, but they are both equally important for meeting more people and getting even if you're great at the down funnel portion, if your top of funnel doesn't have, leads coming into it, then nothing else matters.
Yeah.
So with online dating, the biggest thing I see that men get wrong is they just have bad profiles. And as a man, back to your point from the beginning, if you don't have an exceptional profile, you're not getting any matches.
What's exceptional?
Great photos. So high quality photos that showcase what you look like, no question what you look like, showcase your lifestyle, your hobbies and interests. Again, we don't just want 6 headshots.
Yeah.
They should be a variety of photos. Compelling, interesting bio and prompts, ideally something that can make her smile and gives her something to ask about or piques her interest. So like, oh, I want to know more about this thing that he talked about. And that's really it. And then you need some proof points. You want to verify your profile, link your social media just from a safety perspective of like,
Right.
okay, this guy is who he says he is. Although if the other parts are completed well, that usually becomes less important because it's like, okay, he looks like a real human.
Sure.
Whereas a woman can literally throw up a few photos, like not put any info. And
Yeah.
she has a million matches. She has more matches than she knows what to do with.
For sure. And I think in general, women are just more skilled in terms of how to take good quality
Yeah,
photos.
what
Men
makes
don't
a good
care.
photo.
We're doing like chin up photos
Yeah.
or like blurry photos from the rain. So I totally get that. So they did all that and they're still not getting matches. What did they do?
Sounds like you better get offline and start meeting people in person.
So that's what you
online
recommend.
dating isn't for everybody. Listen, there are certain people that are going to be challenged online dating. If you are really short, you are going to be filtered out by most women who have a height criteria set in their profile.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're doomed to be single. It just means you need to look for ways to meet women that cater to your strengths.
Sure.
So meeting them at interest areas of things you're good at, developing your in real life approach. There are plenty of women who would date a guy who is shorter than them if she meets him in person and he's charming and he makes her smile, but would never even see his profile online because she has her height filter set to something specific.
Right. Because it's like what she aspires for. But obviously, if there's so many other good qualities of a man, it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
Women are not as superficial as guys. Right?
Yeah, I actually feel like that is true. Men care way more about what women look like than women care about what men look like.
Right. Well, what do women care about? Because kind of go back to this idea of hypergamy. Women, there's this whole idea like men perceive women like older guys, women like guys with money. And then it kind of leads them into this negative loophole of women are gold diggers, right? There's this whole like whatever pill community.
Incel community,
that like hate on women, which I find so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But what is it do you think that
Yeah.
women want that maybe men don't understand?
Yeah. So both of those things that you just described, like a man being older, okay, what does that tell us? That she doesn't like him because in years he is older, but that probably means he's more mature, he's more established, maybe he's more confident. Women want a guy who is high status. And ultimately what is, like high status, you hear that all the time. Okay, it's so vague. What does that ultimately mean? But she wants a guy who's going places, who looks like he can provide for her and a family if that's something she wants. It's like women are gold diggers, all they want is money. And it's like, no, but being able to provide is attractive because having a steady career also shows your ability to commit, your ability to persevere, your ability to focus. These are all attractive qualities in a partner. And so showing respect to yourself, to others. And it's another thing, like, guys, I'll see say, like, oh, like, women want assholes. And it's like, no, women don't want assholes.
Yeah.
But there are certain traits associated with being an asshole, like looking out for yourself, like being confident, standing your ground, that are also attractive in a man. So you can be kind, but still stand your ground and put yourself first and respect yourself. And that's going to be attractive. And you take that back to evolutionary, or you look at that in the context of evolution, and you take it back to caveman times. Does she want the caveman who's bending over backwards for everybody else and, putting everybody else before himself? Or does she want the caveman who's taking action, not scared of what other people think, going out and getting shit done? That's attractive.
Yep. But you still, that's the confusion, right? It's people think you have to be either the nice guy or the asshole. And it's not, like, the world doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You can be both. And I think that's the clarity that people needed.
You can be kind. You can be present. We talked about that earlier. Just being present, looking at somebody, actually listening to them, asking thoughtful questions. You can do that and then still have boundaries and respect yourself and put yourself before a complete stranger. And that can make for a great first date.
Yep. There's a book called The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. It doesn't sound as douchey as people think it is, by the way. Like, he's written some of the most, like, credible books. But he summarized the kind of this core competency skill of seducers in one sentence. And he said that they're outer focused, meaning they're not in their head. They're not thinking about what to say. They're not self-conscious. They're purely outer focused in terms of how is this person reacting? How do they feel? What questions should they ask? And I found that really interesting. Is like, that was a good tip for people that maybe get nervous when they're in particularly like an in-person conversation.
Yeah. To
be completely outer focused and thinking about, how should you direct the conversation? How should you lead that conversation forward? What are some other tips you recommend for people to be more inner confident or to be more charismatic?
Yeah. So let me think about that. I'm going to get a sip of water too while we're at it.
Yeah. Like, for me, the times when I feel most confident are pretty simple. It's like when I take care of myself, when I'm going to the gym, when I'm disciplined, and that self-respect that I have for myself comes out because I know I've done the work on myself, and it doesn't really matter what other people think because only I know the work that I've done. So yeah.
Confidence doesn't come from external validation. If it is true confidence, like what you just touched on. And that's what I tell my clients is, if you want to feel more confident, spend time getting good at things. So this doesn't mean getting good at dating, but it could be anything that you enjoy. Like, get good at bowling. That can be a source of confidence for you. Get good at stand-up comedy. Those are things that you can be confident about. And depending on where you're starting from today, it can be helpful to write a list of 10 things that you're confident or 10 things you love about yourself and refer back to that. Read that before dates. Read that before situations where you might be nervous, to remind yourself of your worth and everything you bring to the table, because you're a lot less likely to put her on a pedestal or feel like you're not worthy if you truly believe, and know that you have all of these things going for you and that you deserve a woman of high quality or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you're not letting the other person dictate how you feel
about yourself.
What you think about yourself.
Exactly.
It's yourself.
Even if she doesn't like you, or if she rejects you or isn't receptive to your approach, that isn't going to affect how you feel about yourself.
How do you define, and everybody has a different definition, a high value man and a high value woman?
So I think for both a high value man and woman, they are living their authentic life and bringing into the world whatever makes them feel good about themselves and whatever they feel called to do. So I talk about trajectory. It's like, it doesn't actually even matter where you're at today, to be high value, but what are your aspirations? What are you working towards? That's really attractive, and that actually shows a lot of your value. You don't have to have accomplished, your ultimate goals or have built this thing. But if you're working towards something, that's what's admirable. And that's ultimately what a partner wants to see.
Yeah.
So that can be a way to sort of like assess, I think, value in someone.
I agree. Do you think that that differs for, do you think like high value characteristics are different for men and women? So for example, like is like, let's say for beauty or money, let's say. Does a woman with a lot of money, does that automatically put her in a high value woman? It seems like it does for men, like to a certain degree. Is the same thing for a woman, you think?
I think
what
it
a man cares about?
depends. Yeah, I think it really depends on who is like assessing, Like for a certain man, like he is going to really value a woman who has money or a certain career. And for other men, that isn't going to be important. But I think, you can make generalizations.
Right.
Like where, women tend to want security. I mean, again, going back to like the traditional roles, like if she's expected to have children, she faces higher costs for that. She needs to know that her partner or who she picks isn't going to run off, that he's going to be able to provide for them, to keep them safe, to keep food on the table. Where for a man, he doesn't need to see that in a woman. Well, he might just need to see like, her ability to, thinking again, like caveman times, her ability to reproduce. Is she going to make healthy offspring? Is she going to be able to satisfy like sexual needs even? And that is where that is generalizing where men often will put value when they're looking.
So beauty for women is, you're saying from an evolution perspective, that's a real thing.
Yeah, like I can simplifying that a bit more. Men can often see if they or can look at a woman and understand if they're initially attracted enough to have at least a physical relationship with her right off the bat. Where for a woman, that is not the case. She needs to get to know.
I still find that so hard to believe that like, women would not be attracted to a guy. Even the story of like how you met your husband, that you weren't even thinking, well, I don't know if that's like really true. Like you weren't even thinking about him hitting on you.
Yeah.
And then later on it became like a thing. Whereas for a man, it's like, oh my God, this girl is so in love with me or something, right? It's like if it was the other way around.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. Like, why don't women immediately perceive that from a physical perspective?
Well, I think, what I was going to get at is that women need to know more before they feel excited or interested in having a physical relationship because their costs are higher. So, women are the scarcer resource. Like eggs are a scarcer resource than sperm. They face much higher costs from pregnancy and child rearing than men do. So they need to see, okay, this man is going to fulfill these categories, like these things that I need as a provider, as a protector, before I'm willing to take that risk. Whereas for a man, he doesn't need to know that. He can essentially have sex with 10 women in a day and not face any of the physical costs from reproduction. Yeah.